The skyline glittered like a sea of diamonds as the evening sun dipped below the edge of Manhattan. On the 47th floor of a high-rise tower, the Crane penthouse buzzed with the energy of New York's elite, venture capitalists, fashion icons, tech geniuses, and a few celebrities whose names needed no introduction. The soft hum of conversation mixed with clinking champagne flutes and the distant notes of a live jazz quartet tucked discreetly in the corner. Elliot Crane stood at the center of it all, as he always did. Impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, whiskey in hand, he was a billionaire many times over, young, sharp, arrogant, and restless. He'd built his tech empire before 30, and now at 34, he collected toys and people like trophies, cars, jets, art, and socialites. Surrounded by admirers, Elliot was in rare form, entertaining his guests with stories that skirted the line between genius and absurdity. Someone had asked what he valued more, intellect or ambition. Intellect, Elliot replied without hesitation, a smirk tugging at one corner of his mouth. You can buy ambition. Intelligence, that's rare. He took a sip of his bourbon. In fact, I've got something fun. He motioned toward a side table where a security guard handed him a slim leather folio. From inside, Elliot pulled out a sheet of paper covered in strange symbols, tight, spiraled characters that looked both ancient and alien. Linear A, he announced, holding it up. Minoan script. Dead language. No one's cracked it. This one's a religious tablet, discovered off the coast of Crete. Experts have tried. AI has tried. No luck. The crowd leaned in, curiosity piqued. I'm offering a challenge. Anyone here who can translate even a full paragraph of this, he said, waving the page, gets my private jet for a weekend. No joke. Take your friends, fly to Bali, the Maldives, wherever. All expenses paid. There was laughter, polite and skeptical. One hedge fund manager chuckled. Is that real? Elliot grinned. It's real. I just got it from a guy at Oxford who swears it's the only complete text of its kind. Ancient mystery, unsolved. Give it a shot. The guests exchanged glances, but no one stepped forward. It was a fun stunt, not a real contest. They were rich, not linguists. Most barely remembered their college French. That's when Lena appeared, carrying a tray of empty glasses, weaving quietly through the crowd. She wore a simple black uniform, her curly hair tied neatly under a cap. A 27-year-old maid from the Dominican Republic, Lena had been working events in the building for months, quiet, punctual, invisible to the guests who never noticed her unless she spilled something, which she never did. Elliot's gaze flicked to her, and a mischievous glint lit his eyes. Even you, Lena, he said, holding the page toward her. His tone was half joke, half taunt. Translate this, and the jet's yours. The guests chuckled, awkwardly. Some smiled uncomfortably. Lena paused mid-step, her eyes falling on the symbols. She blinked once, then slowly walked over and set her tray down on a sideboard. Elliot raised an eyebrow. She took the page from him carefully, as if it might crumble in her hands. She studied it for a moment, then looked up at him. Calm, steady. Okay, she said. The room went quiet. Someone let out a stifled laugh. Elliot tilted his head, unsure if she was serious or playing along. You want to take a crack at it? I do. Well then, he said, grinning. You've got 3 days. Lena nodded once, folded the page gently, and left the room without another word. As the party resumed, Elliot shrugged and turned back to his guests, chuckling. Wouldn't that be something? No one noticed the spark in Lena's eyes as the elevator doors closed. Behind her, the penthouse felt quieter than usual. It had been 3 days since the party, 3 days since Lena had taken the manuscript with her soft-spoken, okay, and vanished like a ripple in a still pond. Elliot Crane hadn't thought of it much at first. To him, the moment had been nothing more than a passing amusement, a party anecdote. But on the second day, he'd caught himself looking at the door between meetings, half wondering if she would return. On the third, curiosity turned to irritation. People didn't just take things from Elliot Crane, even as a joke. Then, at exactly 10:03 a.m., a sharp knock echoed through the sleek glass office. Yeah, Elliot called, barely glancing up from his phone. The door opened slowly. There she was, Lena, not in her maid uniform. No black apron, no cleaning cart, no cap. She wore a crisp white blouse tucked into a pair of worn jeans, a canvas tote slung over her shoulder. She looked calm, collected, as if she belonged there. In her hands, a neatly bound stack of printed papers. Elliot blinked, sat up. You're back. I said I would be, she replied. She stepped forward and laid the pages on his desk. He glanced at the first page. His own scan of the Linear A manuscript was at the top, and below it, columns of English. Clean, precise, paragraphs of translated text, footnotes in the margins, historical context, linguistic references. He narrowed his eyes. What is this? It's the translation, she said. Or the most accurate approximation possible. Linear A is still largely unknown, but I cross-referenced surviving glyphs with phonetic patterns found in both Linear B and early Semitic inscriptions. The syntax aligned with known Minoan ritual texts. Elliot gave a low, skeptical laugh. You're kidding. She didn't smile. I also compared vocabulary patterns to Akkadian and Proto-Indo-European stems. There were commonalities in agricultural terminology. That was the breakthrough. He flipped another page, then another. The translated lines read like poetry, archaic yet lyrical. References to lunar cycles, water rituals, the fertility of soil. A whole section about the waxing moon and harvest tides. He didn't know if it was accurate, but it felt ancient. How do I even know this is legit? He muttered. You can ask Professor Malcolm Graves at Cambridge, she replied, setting a business card on the desk. I emailed him the rough draft. He called it the most compelling working interpretation of Linear A he's seen in 2 decades. Elliot stared at her. Who are you? I was a linguistics graduate student, she said simply. Back home, University of Santo Domingo, ancient languages, Sumerian, Coptic, Sanskrit, anything I could get my hands on. But my family needed money. So I left school, to be a maid, to survive, she said, her voice cool but without bitterness. Translation doesn't pay rent in New York. Elliot leaned back in his chair, tapping the stack of papers. His smirk was gone, his usual cocky edge replaced by something quieter. Thoughtful. You just translated a language no one's cracked in centuries, he said slowly. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. And you want the jet? I want what you promised, she said. 1 weekend, anywhere. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Not just a maid, not a background figure in someone else's story. A scholar, a mind sharper than most of the suits he dealt with daily. After a long pause, he nodded. You've got it. She turned to leave, pausing only briefly at the door. Thank you. And then she was gone, leaving Elliot alone with a stack of paper and the growing realization that the smartest person in the room had never been at the party, she'd been cleaning up after it.